What's going on, guys? It's Jaster here, coming at you with my first ever video. Cue that intro. In today's video, we will be discussing Pokemon Unite playable Pokemon and what tiers they each belong in, from my personal perspective. For a quick background on me, I used to compete on a collegiate League of Legends team, and I am currently aspiring to become the best Pokemon Unite player I can, and am currently ranked Master in Pokemon Unite. I will be streaming Pokemon Unite and playing it quite frequently whilst making content here on this brand new YouTube channel. My name is Jeff, but a lot of my gamer friends just call me Jay or Jaster. And before we get into the video, I would like everybody to go down below to the comment section and answer today's question of the day, which should be popping up on the screen now. Now then, let's get right into the tier list. So, for the tier list, I think what we're going to do is we're going to let's go ahead and rename the tiers. Best Pokemon. Actually, we'll just leave. Okay, never mind. Okay, so instead of actually renaming these, let's just say S tier is going to be the Pokemon that are like, you should have this on every team if possible, and if not, your alternative should be an A or B tier. A tier is going to be almost as strong as S tier, obviously, but not quite as strong. Same with B, almost as strong as A, but not quite as strong. And then C tier is where we're going to start getting into Pokemon that you really shouldn't be playing if you're trying your hardest to win in a competitive setting. However, they're still capable of being good if you're like a one-trick on them, or if you just know what your role is. And then the D tier is going to be Pokemon that you really just shouldn't be playing at all. And I will go ahead and say that this is going to be this tier list is post the update on August 4th, I believe, was the day that we got the update, where they buffed a few Pokemon, nerfed a few Pokemon, notably Gengar actually had its hex messed up. So, anyways, let's go ahead and start ranking these Pokemon. We're going to start off with my first S tier Pokemon. And we're actually going to give the first S tier slot to Lucario. Lucario is insane. He's a good all-rounder, can go top lane, can go bot lane, and I think you could jungle him, but he's best in lane. What he's so good at is securing objectives with his power-up punch, and I think outside of like a Snorlax Heavy Slam or a Cinderace Ultimate, or just certain Pokemon's Ultimate, or Unite moves, sorry. I say Ultimate because I play League of Legends, but they're Unite moves. Lucario really is just the best. Power Punch just does so much damage, and the ability to secure objectives is super important, and he's strong early, mid, and late. And the ability to dive through the team comps, he can sneak goals, he can split push and sneak goals. He's just a very solid all-around Pokemon, and he can do pretty much everything. So after that, we're going to talk about our first and probably only D tier Pokemon. Actually, I don't think there are any D tier Pokemon now that I'm thinking about it. Oh crap. We're going to remove D tier Pokemon completely. Let's see, delete row. So the D Pokemon where you shouldn't play them at all, I think we're just going to do C tier where they're still playable, but you shouldn't play them as much. I'm actually going to put Talonflame there. I think you need to be a one-trick to play Talonflame. It's really squishy. He is really mobile and fast, but being a speedster, you need to be mobile and fast. But a lot of the damage it outputs is just not quite high enough from my perspective, and I just don't think the mobility he gains from not doing much damage and how squishy he is worth the risk. He just gets one-shot by pretty much everything, and unless you're finding a squishy target like an Eldegoss or a Pikachu or something like that, unless you're finding them literally by themselves, you're not going to get a knockout that easily. And I think that's just going to cater to a not very solid Pokemon overall. So now that we've got our top of the, like our very best Pokemon and then our very worst Pokemon, in my opinion, we're going to show you some middle tier Pokemon now. The first middle tier Pokemon I'm going to show you here is actually going to be Machamp. I think Machamp is, I almost want to put it B, but I think it might be A. He's similar to Lucario. He does a lot of damage. He's pretty bulky for an all-rounder, actually. I feel like he survives pretty long. With the right team and setup, you can actually punish people pretty hard for positioning poorly. You can take Submission, or you can take, I forget what his other ability is called, but you can take the ability that allows him to stun somebody. And then Close Combat you can take for damage, or you can take Cross Chop to gap close if you need to punish people and you like movement more. You have alternatives, and then Close Combat is for more damage, but a little bit less gap closing, a little bit less mobility. Just a solid all-around Pokemon, similar to Lucario. Lucario just does it slightly better. And now we're gonna go to to a Pokemon that's a little bit lower, but still pretty solid. And we're actually gonna go with Gengar here. So Gengar's one of those Pokemons that are, he's actually the only one in my opinion that just Sludge Bomb Hex is so disgusting. The ability to one-shot a carry, get in and out again with his Unite move. He's just pretty stealthy, pretty slick, and pretty hard to catch out. Now, he does have a few counters, which is why he's not A or S tier. If you didn't know, Mr. Mime Barrier can, if you put a barrier between Gengar and the target that he's about to hex onto, it actually blocks his hex. He doesn't go through with it. And there's a few other ways to stop him completely. You could full heal, I believe, Gardevoir passive. If you have Gardevoir and you have her passive available, you can poison him back. So that's pretty solid as well. But yeah, Gengar he one-shots some people, but he's similar to Talonflame in the sense that he needs to find people separated from their team, or find people just slightly mispositioned. And I think he does a slightly better job than Talonflame because he can get right back out as soon as he gets in, because his Hex resets every time he uses it if he's got his target with Sludge Bomb on it. So all he has to do is Hex right back out after he kills his target. So he's a little bit more slippery than Talonflame. I think that's what gives him the edge over Talonflame. Alright, so now we're going to go to my next S tier Pokemon. I think Snorlax is the second best Pokemon in the game, but you have to know how to play it. The ability to use Block is insane. That ability is actually the most insane ability outside of Power Up Punch from Lucario. Being able to zone people out of team fights, separate people out of team fights, block people from stopping your teammates from scoring goals. It's just so good. And then Heavy Slam obviously is an insane way to secure objectives, just like Lucario Power Up Punch. And the CC it provides in team fights is also insane. And then the Unite move, while it doesn't do any damage, the recovery from it's insane. If you've got Muddy Barrier, you're going to help shield an ally, and the knockup from it is huge. And it's going to be clutch in a lot of moments that you need it to be clutch. Now, honestly, we're going to go on to my next S tier Pokemon, which is actually Eldegoss. Eldegoss is the only healer in the game, to my knowledge, or at least the only team healer, I should say. Cotton Guard is an insane move. Pollen Puff if you want additional healing, but I personally prefer Leaf Tornado for the move speed and the little bit of damage in team fights that you can provide. Eldegoss is just the best support in the game in terms of healing. And honestly, looking at the rest of the supports that we have currently, it's just the best support in the game, straight up. There's no questions about it. So next we'll move on to the two fan favorites, the Kanto Starters. And I honestly think both of them are in lower B tier. They both have unique niche scenarios where they're good. Venusaur is really good, for instance, at stealing objectives with Solar Beam, and Charizard is really good at late game team fighting. However, Charizard's early game is really weak, and Venusaur is not very mobile. And on top of that, outside of its Solar Beam, it doesn't produce as much damage as I would like, although the recent buff to Sludge Bomb is actually really good for it. It actually does a lot more damage now, but there are certain matchups where if your opponent's running Lucario, Zeraora, and Crustle, for instance, three Pokemon that just want to be in your face constantly, you actually might have to take Giga Drain just to stay alive, just because you're so immobile. So Venusaur's in an awkward spot where he doesn't quite do as much damage as you'd like, and he's also very skill shot based, so it's high skill cap. So somebody who's really good at aiming solar beams might be able to put Venusaur at A tier, but for the average player, I'd say he's B tier. We're going to move on to my next A tier Pokemon, and that's going to be Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales provides so much slow in team fights, just from her frost and freezing people. Her passive, her autos, Aurora Beam, or Aurora Veil, Aurora Veil Dazzling Gleam is my go-to build on her, and it's just so solid, and you can run Muscle Band on her if you run Aurora Veil, and it does % health damage in a cone to everybody when your Aurora Veil's up, based on what you're hitting, because your autos will be empowered autos that cone out, and it's just so strong. Yeah, and then her other abilities are situationally okay, but I think you should just go Dazzling Gleam, Aurora Veil 99% of the time. Alright, so we're sitting here in this, and we've got a lot of supports and all-rounders, and Alolan Ninetales I consider more of a support. So where are the speedsters and the carries of the teams that are supposed to be higher tiers? We're actually going to put two carries up here together. Both Greninja and Cinderace are going to be high A tier. I think Cinderace gets the edge just slightly, despite the nerf that just hit it. It's no longer S tier because of that nerf. I would have considered it S tier before August 4th, but because of the nerf, I'm going to put it in A tier now. And Greninja actually just got a little bit of a buff, and I think he was probably high B tier or low A tier before, but now he's high A tier along with Cinderace. Both of them are strong carries. They can both jungle, they can both lane. They're just really strong carries that you can utilize on your team. They both work really well with Scopelands and Muscle Band, and until they fix the bug, make sure Scopelands is on the far left and Muscle Band's on the right of Scopelands. Otherwise, the interaction of the two items bugs out. It's weird. But anyways, those two are the main carries of most comps, and those are the ones that you'll see probably jungling just because the level advantage is so good out of the jungle. Now, there's two other carries that I think are not quite as good, but still situationally strong, and I'm going to put them in the middle of B tier. I'm actually going to put Gardevoir slightly over. No, I'm going to leave it there. Gardevoir and Pikachu. They both provide CC with their stuns. They both provide heavy damage, and not just heavy damage, but heavy AoE damage instead of single target damage like Greninja and Cinderace do. And that is pretty crucial, and Gardevoir can even jungle. I haven't really seen Pikachu struggling yet, but they might be able to as well. But they're pretty much laners, primarily. And the main reason why you might take Gardevoir into the jungle is just because it's one of those Pokemon that doesn't fully evolve into level 10, so you need it to get extra XP, which you get out of the jungle. Now we're going to kind of speed through the rest of the tier list, because I think the rest of them there's less to talk on. We're going to put one more Pokemon in C tier, actually, and that's going to be Garchomp. And I hate to do this because Garchomp's actually one of my favorite Pokemon to play. I think it just suffers from the same thing Charizard suffers from, and even Gardevoir to a certain extent. Your early game is very, very, very weak unless you're in the jungle, because you're going to be laning against opponents who have range on you, who have gap closers on you, who have CC on you, and you're just a little Gibble who can auto attack and then hit Earthquake or whatever. It's not Earthquake level 1, but the small Earth, I don't know what it's called. I'm going to stop trying to say what it's called because I don't know what it is. But he doesn't have much ways to hit people and bully people in lanes like other people do. And he doesn't really get anything until level 6, 8, and 10. Those are his power spikes. And if you're not power spiking until level 6, ooh, you're in a rough boat. So that's why he's going to stay C tier for me. I think he is slightly better than Talonflame just because if you can safely farm and scale with him, he actually demolishes late game. And then we're going to put the next tank in A tier, and that's going to be Slowbro. Slowbro provides a whole lot of crowd control, which, by the way, every time I say CC, it means crowd control. He provides a lot of CC into the fight with Surf, with Telekinesis, and even his Unite move, just locking down one target and dealing damage to them while shielding yourself is insane. And any time you have a carry nearby you, just press that Unite move on their carry, ooh, and it's just the fight is won then and there. And the other tank, I just realized Wigglytuff is listed as a tank or defender instead of a support based on the background color. But we're going to put Crustle in B tier, and we're going to put it actually upper B tier. This is probably going to draw a lot of attention because I don't think many people think very highly of Crustle, but I think he's not as tanky of a defender as Slowbro and Snorlax, but he still provides just as much crowd control with his X-Scissor. X-Scissor is insane, and you can set it up really easy with eject button. You can set it up really easy with Shell Smash, which Shell Smash is by far its best ability, although Rock Tomb is still situationally good too if you don't need the speed boost. If you're not trying to score, Shell Smash is really good for scoring back caps, and Rock Tomb is more situationally needed for locking people down easier with your X-Scissor, and if you don't need the speed to catch them. But Crustle is underrated, and he also does a whole lot of damage, especially with the Shell Smash X-Scissor build. Alright, next we're going to talk about the last 5 Pokemon here. We're going to talk about the 2 speedsters first. Zeraora was initially thought to be busted, and then it was realized that it was actually kind of balanced. You could kill it pretty easily when it went in on you as long as its discharge was down. Or even if its discharge isn't down, you can still kill it pretty easily. Zeraora is just high damage and pretty high mobility too, but it comes at the cost of being one of the squishiest Pokemon in the game, and therefore it can be stopped and shut down pretty easily if you play around it properly. That being said, I still think it's A tier, and I think it's probably about right here. It's a little bit better than Slowbro, but not quite as good as Alolan Ninetales. And then the other speedster is in the very similar boat, but I think he's high B tier. He also, kind of like Zeraora, does a lot of damage with Night Slash. I think it's Night Slash. Night Slash and Psycho Cut are the abilities that I prefer to go on him. Night Slash resets whenever you knock out some Pokemon, I believe. And it's just absolutely insane. Now for the last damage, Cramorant. With the proper setup, Cramorant's actually kind of insane, and we're actually going to put him in A tier. His Unite move is probably the best Unite move in the game. And a little fun fact that not all players know is you can eject button while using it to reposition to make sure you're hitting more people. It's got high damage output as well because of its Unite move, but also its Surf and Hurricane abilities provide just insane CC from a carry's perspective, and he also just does a whole lot of damage for a carry. The only problem is he is squishy and he is immobile, so you're gonna need your carry or your tanks to defend you pretty well. And finally, for the last 2 Pokemon, Mr. Mime, I actually like a lot, but I still think he's just C tier. Actually, no, I'm gonna say he's lower B tier. In team competitive play, you can utilize his wall to wall people off of objectives. You can utilize his confusion to stun people and push people away. He's just all around really good for objective control, but the only problem with it is his power level is just not quite as high as the other Pokemon in terms of just outlasting long team fights. Eldegoss helps your team survive longer team fights. Alolan Ninetales provides a whole lot more CC and zoning as a carry support. So Mr. Mime is just lower B tier. And then lastly, our last Pokemon is going to be Wigglytuff. And Wigglytuff did receive a buff that makes it really strong, but I still think it's kind of a meme. Sing and Double Slap. Double Slap does a lot of damage now. Sing is by far better than Rollout. Rollout can be nice in certain scenarios, but it's really hard to control, and it's easy to dodge if you're an opponent that sees a Rollout coming. And then its other move, Dazzling Gleam, is not quite as good as Ninetales' version of Dazzling Gleam, but it also packs a punch. But I just don't think it's higher than C tier. And then obviously Blastoise, Blissey, and Clefable are not playable yet, and Clefable may not actually come to the game at all. We'll see. Blissey hasn't been announced or revealed, but we know it's in the game. And then Blastoise is the next Pokemon that should come out. Anyways, that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Twitch to keep up to date on YouTube video releases and Twitch streams. And we'll see you guys in the next video.